The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100, that's what we're talking about here on the day. Now, going into tomorrow, you have a very big data pool coming out that will basically set you up for the next week or so going into the next Fed meeting. Now, you do know already going into Friday, we had unemployment data spike a little bit higher. Expectations of 3.7 came out 3.9, pushing closer to the 4%, 4.2% target that the Fed basically gave out. And the understanding of the importance of that is really important because the Fed has said when we can get unemployment higher, we can get the market regulated, that's when we'll start cutting. Instantly, markets start to price in a cut. You saw a really nice spike into all-time highs here on the Nasdaq, and then now you're pulling back because expectations for CPI have been so hot. If we look at last month, they weren't great. CPI higher than expected, PPI higher than expected, and PCE was nothing to be joked about, right? Those were all not very beneficial. That being said, even with that data, we were able to continue to push into highs. Now, there's some other key bullet points we're going to talk about. I want to go into the chart specifically, but I do want to start today with going over what's happening with risk on versus risk off and what big money appears to be doing here. So when we jump here quickly to the DXY, we still see the dollar showing weakness to the downside, a little bit of upside on the day, but overall a lot of downside over the past few days. We look at yields, what's happening there, right? Giving you the best viewpoint, what interest rates are really affecting, right? And the yields are still in that giant bear flag basically since December, right? Pushing back in your key level, but not really concerning. You're at that midpoint, and what do we know? If we get below 4% here on the 30-year yield, we go full bull. Those have been the biggest things I've been discussing over the past few months. If we can drop below 4%, which I believe will happen when we start to cut rates, I believe it's going to happen, you start to get that bull run again. And giving you an idea, what happened back here, November 2022, you get below 4%. That's when the Nasdaq bottoms. That's when the SPY bottoms, right? That's when NVDA bottoms are around $100 and then proceeds to run over the next year and a half, 900%. What a fantastic story. But that's what's happening there. So things to consider. And the market didn't really get bearish or get a pullback until July, August, when you broke back above and held below 4%. So things to consider and things to be looking at. So that's where we're at right now. Okay. Now we also can go into something like IWM because I do want to highlight, right? Some I want to go over the bad parts, but I do want to go over the good parts. IWM here, right? On the weekly chart, you've been trading in a box for essentially 2 years, 2.5 years, and now you're trying to break out. IWM still holding above the $200 psychological level, trying to get continuation and hold here. Another good viewpoint, right? Although the S&P, Nasdaq is pulling back, IWM is still at highs. Things to really be focused on right now is that even though there are some risk along the lines and things that are happening with banks and things that are happening with a few of these other companies, that the market's still very much pricing in a risk on feel. Okay, now the Nasdaq, again, we went over that, but let's talk about what's happening here. The Nasdaq is still above previous 2021 highs. You're holding up there on the weekly. You zoom into the daily, you're still clearly making higher highs and higher lows. And just giving you the visual, the viewpoint, the channel is still very, very strong. I mean, very clear, easy to see. You're just in an uptrend, right? It's not a wedge. It's nothing crazy. It's an uptrend. Simple as that. So things that you have to be focused and looking at right now. Okay, and that's what I'm looking at. So again, let's dive a little bit deeper into what's happening here. So we go into ES as well, and you can still see you're operating there. Now I don't want to use. I'm using the futures have rolled over on TradingView just to give you a visual, but I'm still going to be using previous futures because you're still getting volume on them, and I just like the levels right now. I'll get everything adjusted this weekend, hopefully. But so far, giving you an idea of where we're at. We're still at 18,000 here on Nasdaq. You're still holding up phenomenal. Still not a concern. Now you're below that key level of 1807 there. Okay, that's a really big point. 1807 has been a big line in the sand. Go to the 4-hour real quick too. Now you're seeing we're still making higher lows here on Nasdaq. Worth mentioning. Things you should be considering. Balance of 17.9, kind of trying to pick a direction to go here, right? Go to ES. I would argue ES is holding up pretty damn well also. Better than the Nasdaq in some cases here, right? Really operating above highs, making higher lows as well. Still holding up great. You bounced at 5107, still pushing back up. The only thing that really concerns me right now is the Dow. Dow is not getting the love that we're seeing anywhere else. Again, strong bounce to end the day. I mean, basically since 9 o'clock, you got a great bounce. But if Dow starts to lose this, ES is going to roll over, SPY is going to roll over with ease. That's why tomorrow's CPI is so key, in my opinion. It's going to directly impact what's happening on the Dow. So those are things you have to look at with indexes and what I'm looking at overall. Downside expectations, upside expectations really quick. Go to the 2-hour here. Again, for SPY, if we get any downside tomorrow, I think you come into 503 with ease, and then you're anticipating maybe a gap fill towards 497. So that's what I'd be looking at there. Qs, again, you've been basically basing in this little box, giant support here. You get below 433, you're pushing down to 426, possibly even lower. And you're really curious if you're ever going to make lower lows here. Qs overall continue to hold up well. So you have a long way to go before things really could get bearish. Giving you a viewpoint there. But again, data will be very important into tomorrow. So understand that, be thinking about that. Again, if you want to know, CPI is tomorrow. As you can see, it's going to be right here, 7:30 a.m. Central, 8:30 Eastern. So an hour before market does open, things to be considering. I also want to go over what's happening here with volume. It's, again, wasn't a surprise. It actually was decent for how kind of crappy today was. But again, 62 million, pretty low. What do we know too? We go over to Edgepool, look at the data pool there. 71% of Mondays in green. Today was not one of those days. Sorry, not sorry. Slightly red here on the day by 0.09%. Kind of hilarious to think about that, but still very close. Tuesdays and Wednesdays have been our bearish days historically over the past year as well. I do want to go into what's happening here with volume though, because I think volume gives you the best answer here. I think volume will pick up tomorrow. I do think it will because it's a CPI day. But again, you're looking to see volume pick up and start giving us an overall direction over the next 24 hours as well. Link for Edgepool is down below. So that's what we're looking at there. Going into what's happening here as well into some equities. I'm not going to spend too long here in the video today, so we'll be able to get in and out as quickly as possible. Number one, Apple. You guys keep asking about this. You kind of had a gap fill, but that's really it. Nothing else happening here on Apple. I don't really care until you get it back above 184. Not a fan. NVIDIA, you had some day trades here, but that was kind of it. So you got back above 877, 876. You pushed into like 888 and then came back down. That was my only trade on the day. I'm going to tell you right now. And then you kind of just had a channel back to the downside. What I'm looking for here on NVIDIA now is to see if you're going to hold these local lows that you made on the day right near open. If you get below 841, I am looking for a gap fill down to roughly 823 and then probably some further downside. But that 823 level is going to be pretty tough to hold up there. But what I will say, though, is if you get back above 877, I see a push into 900 and possibly even higher. You can see we have developed now a lot of order blocks in this range, supply and demand levels as well. So, again, a lot of resistance to the upside. But I will say, if the Nasdaq starts to push, I think NVIDIA gets that momentum. We saw a little bit of that this morning as well. The FOMO will kick in again, and it's not even FOMO from retail. It's FOMO from like hedge funds and big money there. AMD, you're kind of just chilling. We're at 198, 199. You start to lose 195 here, and it's going to get ugly. You have a little bit of a demand down there as well. Under 195, testing to 193. I'm not really going short on AMD here. Can't really do much. I also want to see if you're going to break local highs around right there. That's what I'm looking for specifically. Okay. Again, what I'm looking for right now. Again, going a little bit further, going into Meta, some of these other names as well. Meta, again, you slid down. We got below some of our key levels. We mentioned below 503, push on to 494. Under 494, got ugly quick. Netflix, under 605 currently. Under 605, you're targeting 593. If you get a retest of 593, I'll be looking for buyers to step in there. But again, I'm not going to try to trade the chop, right? I'm not going to try to trade that. So if the market CPI comes out bad, I do think you're going to probably have inherently downside in the market. I'm not going to confuse it. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. That's how I'm looking at things. I'm going to take it for what it is, and that's how I'm going to attack. So, again, things I'd be looking at right now. Microsoft, again, Microsoft's one of my favorite. I made a little short-form content over Microsoft this weekend. We have some senators buying as congressmen. You're just channeling sideways here. Microsoft is becoming one of my top plays now. If Microsoft can get the momentum, CPI, there's things that have to go well here. But I still think Microsoft is going to get a breakup. I think they're killing in AI. They're killing in everything they're doing. Their earnings have been really phenomenal. Cloud, data centers, all that destroying. I like what they're doing. Again, they need to get above 415 though. So in this range, I can't do much. If you start breaking down below 394, you're probably pushing back into 383. But again, the ranges are really clear, easy to identify here as well. Coinbase, you had a pullback here on the day. It's taking everything in my power not to say Coinbase is an absolute buy, but I like Coinbase where it's at here. Last thing I'm going to go over. If Coinbase just hangs around up here, if the Nasdaq gets some love, Bitcoin's running. Bitcoin is clear as day, very strong. Okay. It's, don't get overcomplicated. Very strong. Higher highs, higher lows, and you're moving against the market. That's the craziest part. Another risk on indicator pointing to us right now. What I'm looking at in the market, how I'm attacking it. I didn't go over a few names, but again, those are the ones I'm liking. All that really matters tomorrow is CPI. If it comes out good, we're happy, we're bullish as it gets. I'll be live tomorrow AM at 10 a.m. Central, so be there. Again, have a good one, traders. See you tomorrow.